Welcome to the Gordox Pub, your home for home-brewed art and storytelling. By the way, StreamYard just told me that we're out of storage.
Well, you know how to cure that, right?
Go back into the thing and delete some?
Yep, delete the library.
Okay, before you don't do that though, because I got storage for it. So if I do it now, it'll kick me out of the screen, won't it?
So what they're saying is that they're not going to save this. It's telling you you're out. Hey, turtles.
Okay, is that like turtles, like plural, or is that? I don't want to misread anything.
Looks like turtles.
Alrighty. So we're going to finish up this panel, or this page. Pages, whatever. And, yeah. That's how I'm going to do it tonight. So, you know the female character that was in the previous couple panels?
Excommunicated?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think I if you want to reuse her, I can put her someplace. One of those things is like, oh, hey, we could just reuse that character again. Hey, Turtle says, thank you for the critique on my art. I do appreciate it.
Hey, it did help. That's what I was trying to do.
Not a sponsor? Could be. Turtle said, yeah, it definitely did. He got some of the books that you recommended.
Good. That's to help you too. And that's the goal, right? Is to help as many people as you can help.
Turtle said it definitely was what he needed. It is he, I hope. I hope that's...
What?
Well, I don't know Turtles. I didn't critique it, his artwork. I'm just calling him and okay, just making sure. Don't want to...
Oh.
It's a little bit harder when everyone uses...
You got to be careful about that these days.
Yeah, but... So, I mean, normally it's not that hard. I mean, but when it's... I mean, Turtles could be anything. All the way down.
Right?
Yeah. Anyways, as I was saying, there's a section coming up that I think we need to, where the story needs to kind of punch up a little, and so I can instigate a couple things with that girl.
Is something coming up that the story needs to what?
We just need to. We need to show Mastiff being Mastiffy. Here's some
Mastiffy or kicking somebody's ass?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Which one?
We have made a promise of this muscle guy, and it's what? That's like pages 4 and 5, right?
Yep.
So,
but it's page 1 with Mastiff, so.
I know, but I'm assuming there will be a cover.
To be fair, it's not like we've shown a bunch of anything with Mastiff. This is the first picture, so.
Right, but I'm assuming the cover would. So, I'm just trying to. I mean, there's a place for it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not just artificially saying, "Hey, look, it's time for a fight scene," but it's this is a dangerous area, and we can make it more dangerous. It also fits in with the story.
I'm good with the place, it's just that I was just, stating that we haven't introduced anything of the character except for his essential build.
Turtles, we've
got some time.
We are trying to document the entire process of making a comic book. So it's my script, it's Rich's art. So you can't see it right now because Rich's hand is over it, but Mastiff is behind the main. There you go. Oh wait, foggy. That's better. Yep. So, Mastiff is a science fiction story set in a kind of a post-apocalyptic world. Well, it's not post-apocalyptic. It's not kind of. It is. Where the environment is incredibly dangerous, and so most people are in these very large cities. To protect them from the environment, really. And there's been a murder. It involves some very special people who curry messages. And so they hired Mastiff, or Mastiff's been hired, to help track down the killer.
We were simplifying it by saying that Mastiff is a tracker. But he's
You're right.
Kind of an investigator, kind of a tracker, kind of a protector, if he needs to be.
Yep.
Which, essentially, it's like a private investigator. Nowadays, a private investigator, they can specialize in different fields. Like, everybody thinks of private investigators as either solving these murders or finding wives cheating on their husbands and vice versa. But in reality, private investigators can work for insurance companies finding fraud. They can work for insurance companies investigating arson and stuff like that. So he's basically a specialist. They also can be bodyguards. So those are different fields, but they are actually literally licensable under the same. How do I know? I studied the subject. I studied to become a private investigator at one point.
By the way, Adam's here.
Hey, Adam.
And thank you for the nice compliment about the beard. I didn't really think I should go to a new school looking like Karl Marx. So.
Like what?
Karl Marx.
Karl Marx?
You know, big, huge, bushy beard.
Most of us had a big, huge, bushy beard.
Yeah, I know. So did Walt Whitman, if I remember correctly.
They say my one did. I guess unless you watch that stupid Excalibur Archie Fortune movie.
Well, I thought it was kind of funny because the other night I was walking downstairs and I went to scratch my neck, but my hair's been out to here, and so when I didn't feel it for a while, I thought it was kind of weird. It's like my face started several inches out, and now it doesn't. It's just, probably could have donated my beard hair for Locks for Love, but it's a little gross.
Bunch of washed it and made brushes out of it. I need to have some watercolor brushes.
Oh, that's what I need to do. Homemade watercolor brushes made from real human hair.
That's right. Organic.
Organic.
No creatures were hurt in the process.
I don't think I can say non-GMO though, because I have my vaccines and whatnot. I think that might qualify as genetically modified. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that box was a hot button issue.
Let's not get into it. I was just saying,
I posted that post mostly to be facetious. Like I posted a Stargazer Raw, the original bad guy from Stargate, because he looked just like him. And
I saw
holy crap, the backlash. Yeah, right? So I posted that they were disqualified from women's competition by the IBA.
Right.
So this is not conjecture. This is not whatever. It's actual facts. And I posted the fact that they were excluded from it and they could not compete in female sports or female boxing according to the IBA or IBA. And holy crap, the backlash that came back.
Well, some of the stuff I've seen, I question
the logic behind some of what these people like. I've seen, and multiple people have said this, so it's probably some meme they saw, and they're just, repeating it. But basically, it goes along the lines of now that this person's in the Olympics, conservatives are unhappy because they recognize that your plumbing doesn't make you a man or a woman, and that somehow proves that conservatives are wrong. And I'm really having to go through some mental gymnastics on this. Because I guess supposedly the argument is that conservatives have always said it's whatever your genitalia is, which I don't think is very accurate, because most conservatives would probably tell you if a guy goes through sexual reassignment surgery, it's still not the same thing as a real woman.
Right.
It's a dude who went through sexual assignment surgery. So I think the conservative argument has pretty much always gone down to genetic things, the actual science. About XX and XY chromosomes, the fact, whatever. And the other one I saw that I thought was funny was, I can't believe they let someone who was stronger and faster into the competition to see who's the strongest and fastest. Because if you want to know who the strongest and fastest is, you go to the men's competition. If all you care about is who's strongest and fastest, it's a guy. Either category. Combined categories. It's a dude.
One of the arguments that popped up was that this hermaphrodite was born with female genitalia. Well, they were born with testes too. They just didn't show on the outside. So that doesn't make them a female because they've got a vagina. Because females don't generally have testes.
Right.
So it's just another bullshit argument. But the thing is that it gives that fighter, and this is what my issue is. The only issue that I got with it really is that it gives that fighter an unfair advantage. You can't be taking steroids to come up to the level of that fighter. See what I mean? Right. There's nothing that any of the other naturally born women can do to pull out so that it's a fair fight.
Right.
And that's my issue. That's the only issue that I've got, is that it's either fair or not. And in this case, it's not fair.
You either want women's sports or you don't.
Right. Well, and that's the other argument is, and that was Gina Carano. I loved her argument because she's the progenitor of women's MMA. And she's saying that it's hard enough to fight a female, if you're a female, that's on steroids. If you're training regular,
right?
And if you're training honestly, it's hard enough to fight somebody that's on steroids, let alone someone that's part man that has an extra boost. And what she was saying, and I agree with this, is that they need to make another category. They need to make a category that is either trans or I don't know what you call it, hormonal balance or hormonal equality or some shit, where those competitors have some type of way of becoming a fair fight, an equal representation, right? She doesn't think it's going away. I agree with her that it's not going away. That there needs to be either a trans category, which hermaphrodites wouldn't directly fit in, but you always notice that, you know, the guys that change into girls fight in girls categories, not in guys, and girls that switch into guys that transition into guys don't try to compete against regular men, right? So it's only the other way around because of what you just said.
Adam said, so why Tuesday? Usually Thursday and Saturday, yeah? We normally do it 3 times a week. Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday.
Yeah, it's usually it was Tuesday first, actually, I think. Why Tuesday? I can answer you, though, if you really want to know the answer. Because we started, I started on Tuesdays, and I was the only one when I started. Because David Finch was doing Monday Night Raw. So he was streaming on Monday, so I didn't do it on Monday, I went to Tuesday. Which ironically, ever since I switched to Tuesdays and Thursdays,
yes,
which ironically, when I switched to Tuesday, or when I made it Tuesdays and Thursdays, he switched and he hasn't done a Monday Night Raw on a Monday in a long time. Either Tuesday, either Thursdays, that he ends up doing paintings or whatever. But yeah, that's the reason that we chose it. We chose it not to be in conflict. I chose it not to be in conflict. Chose it not to be in conflict with Dave. Not that I was worried about taking business away from Dave. I was kind of hoping that I would fill the empty spot. What's that?
He said he blames the Twitch YouTube notifications. He asked for our forgiveness, and I'm still undecided. And he said also, did you know that if the Invisible Man had kids, he would be a transparent? That's terrible and wonderful at the same time. If the Invisible Man had kids, he would be a transparent.
A transparent.
Because the pun. I'm beginning to understand.
I've heard a whole bunch of trans jokes, but given that I posted that thing about the hermaphrodite, it incited a riot pretty much. I probably should keep them to myself. And I'll try to prove that I'm smarter than that. Well, you can win him and say, hi.
Hi.
You think he's anxious to get back to school?
A little bit. I'm anxious to get back to school. Oh, that's interesting. Oh gosh. It's how you get, a pillow over your face in the middle of the night.
Huh?
Adam said, my wife, she said, take out the trash. I said, you cooked it, you take it out. Yes, sorry. I did say Rodney Dangerfield. Mistakes were made. Yeah, I'm kind of very interested for tomorrow because they made me turn my computer and iPad in, and they haven't given it back yet, which is fine by me, I guess. But tomorrow, when I'm not taking attendance very well, like, well, you kind of deprived me of any way to do it. But knowing that it's not my fault, but also knowing that it's my responsibility to take, that conflict that kind of my job, but my boss is preventing me from doing my job, so I really can't take responsibility for it. We'll see.
I think they're using it as an excuse.
I doubt it. Number one, they're desperate. Number two,
well, you didn't think any of this was going to go down the way it did, so.
Well, that's because, about as far as I can get into that. Which is also why, you're kind of right. They could, I suppose, try to do something weird or stupid, but man, that would be
yeah, I'm not wishing it on you. You know I'm on your side, so.
Oh, I know. But, they would, for example, the middle school that I'm in now, they have a big push this year for writing instruction. Cool. Maybe the published guy would be a good person there. Just saying.
Yeah. Since when does that ever matter?
I know, and they're like, yeah, we want students to go. They were talking about this. They wanted, everything from, the idea of eventually publishing. I'm just like, oh, okay. I don't know if they really know what that is, or what that's like, but okay, that's no problem. And, I think that's kind of cool, but how many of the teachers have ever submitted things for publication? You know what I mean? Right. So, it's one of those things where
let alone been accepted.
Right.
Or vetted and accepted.
Yeah. Like, how many of them have sold writing? Little things. And, I suppose technically they all could have. I just don't know about it. But I don't think so. So, and I'm not saying anything bad about the teachers there. I think, I've always liked the teachers. Well, it's not normally teachers that really get in the way.
It's not the teachers being douchebags.
Not normally. And I get, I had bad teachers before. Personally, I've had bad teachers before. And I'm going to guess probably everyone has had bad teachers because, you had several. And everyone's had some.
I broke a vice principal with no one. I didn't really always have a problem with teachers, but a few of the faculty they fucked up.
I'm just saying, I think it's...
I got to say in teachers' favor that I wouldn't be writing if it weren't for a teacher.
Well, that's the other thing. It's like, okay, I can honestly say, and some schools are going to have more than others, whatever. But everyone's probably had a bad teacher or two, but they normally have had at least one that, kind of does something for them. And that's beside all the ones who just do their job like they're supposed to.
We've had a couple of rose teachers, but I've never, it's not like, so I think the worst teacher I ever had was like a science teacher or something like that. But so there was a science teacher I know of that we used to call Mr. Pick and Flick, because anyone in the front row was subjected to boogers flying at them from class. But this is also a guy, and this is 9th grade, that would be dropping shit on the floor to look on the desks at little girls.
That's
So,
creepy.
but he didn't do anything to me. Just was wrong,
Yeah.
I say just, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Saying, like, I wasn't one of the girls, otherwise I probably would have shoved something up fucking nose.
Well, I don't do that kind of thing. I don't even pick my nose in front of students.
Like, because I know of like 2 teachers that were like that, and I wouldn't have thought either one were like you. So. Yeah, I had relatively good experiences with teachers and relatively bad experiences with vice principals. And it's like really vice principals. It's like they're like number 2 in the principal department, so they have to fucking throw their weight around.
Well, to be fair, the number 2
guy,
it's.
I had been out sick the day before, and then I came in the next day, and I hadn't known that the day before the gym teacher said it was going to be study hall again. So I went down and dressed out for gym. And some other kids did too, so I was like, wow, why is it just the 2 of us, right? And the vice principal came around and took the other kid up, and then he was like, I had to redress out to go back to the gym classroom. And he was faster than me, so he came around and grabbed me and fucking swung me up against the locker. And then he got a foot in the nuts, and when he bent over, I just fucking smacked his nose. But he shouldn't have been manhandling it. There was no reason for that. I'd been out sick the day before, and I dressed out, and I just redressed and went to class. Matter of fact, it was his fault that I didn't get to class on time. It would have been maybe a minute late or something like that. And it was study hall, so, right? It was just a power play and authority thrust. I got control of. But I didn't have that problem with regular teachers. Not that I remember. Most of my regular teachers actually went out of my way to find things to inspire me. I've seen some of my kids' teachers be. Some of my kids' teachers, I wonder why I would pay them at all. Like they're not my kids' teachers anymore because those kids are grown up. But like one of them, I know my daughter, she was having a problem understanding a concept, and I was like, well, why don't you ask your teacher? And she's like, well, I did. My teacher told me to look it up online. What the hell is the point of having a teacher? And especially if you're being derisive to kids and telling them to look it up online, right? treating them like they're stupid because they don't know a concept that you didn't teach them. And they're stupid because they didn't look it up on their own. So personally, I didn't have a problem with them, but my kids did. I have personal problems with my kids. And that wasn't a lot actually either. my biggest slacker kid, his teachers went way out of their way to try to help him. One of them contacted me in an email, like on her own time, on her own email and everything else, because she was worried that he wasn't paying attention in school. Because I don't know if you guys had this problem, but when they introduced tablets and stuff in these schools, they basically started letting them do whatever the hell they want. So my kid would be surfing on YouTube or surfing on Facebook or whatever instead of being in school and just saying, well, I don't want to. And they're like, oh, that's fine. Oh, that's fine. And then this teacher gets a hold of me and she's like, you know your son's going to flunk hard because he's not doing any of his assignments. And he didn't realize that he couldn't just skate his way through school by being there. I don't know. I don't know how your brain works like that, knowing that you're in school to learn stuff. Thinking that you can just hang on their iPad, surf porn or whatever.
There are a lot of kids who would spend every single class in the bathroom if they could. I was like, well, I hope you're learning something.
And you know, because most kids move on to do jobs like that too. They go into the bathroom for the first and last half hours of the day, right?
Yeah. And what I also like is they'll go through and they'll complain about class. I'm like, you're never in class. How would you know? And then when they go through and it's like, I realize you're bored. Did you ever try just doing the work so you'd have something to do? Just ever thought about trying? Just a little bit. You'd be surprised.
I mean, like, trying A this hard.
Well, I mean, I've always told students, like, hey, let's say I just got done teaching a lesson on whatever, and you zoned out, and you raise your hand and you say, you ask a question that everyone already knows the answer to because they weren't zoned out. Cool. At least you're trying to learn. Like, I have no problem with that. I really don't. I used to because, it's kind of rude that they would, like, I just said that. Maybe you should pay attention. But for the most part, it's like, well, hey, at least you're trying. It's like, okay. Like, I had a kid who, he would show up late every time to class and, just wasn't doing anything. And finally, they had a conference with him and his dad and stuff, and they finally got through to him, and he started doing his work. And he felt he's like, I'm sorry. This is like, he's working on vocab list like 3, and this is week 18. Like, he's a little bit behind, right? But I'm like, you know what? I'm like, whatever. Like, it's available. You can do it. You can have the grades you want. You can improve your skills. If you come and ask me for help, I'm not going to turn you away just because you goofed off. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Now, will I necessarily stay after school? Maybe if I like you enough. I mean, if you wasted my class time and then you want to waste my time, I get a little bit more protective. That's the way from my family. But most students I would hang around for and help them out.
Right?
So no tablets till high school. It depends on your teacher.
Yeah, not around here. They do it around here, but they didn't when our oldest was in school.
Well,
I keep having to make that distinction because I have one older than my wife and I. But most of my kids are.
I think there's a lot of bad research when it comes to technology, to be honest with you. Simply because I don't think people have really thought about how to use the technology to their advantage, and they end up using like Google stuff. Like they will like Google Classroom and Google. You can do assignments through that and stuff, and it transports it directly into your grade book and blah blah blah. And it's like, yeah, okay, cool, but is it really better? Because if I give you something that I do on the computer, you can do it as many times as you need to learn the concept, and you're not going to get the same questions over and over and over and over again. So it's not just memorize these 10 questions. It's you need to have this skill. And I have a ton of questions that I wrote to practice that skill. And Google, unless they changed something recently, can't do that. And the problem is that a lot of teachers, and I'm not throwing shade at teachers as I am one, but a lot of teachers don't have the time to do that. Like I spend a lot of time putting that into it, like developing that stuff, and I've been lucky to be able to keep using it. I understand teachers, it's one more thing you have to do, and especially if you're a young teacher with young kids, like I get it. And you have to have a school that's willing to go through and do it and have access. And, like a lot of things, we could be using technology better. And instead, I get a lot of people, oh yeah, you can read better off of paper. There is no actual evidence of that. There's evidence of people having a preference, and there's evidence of people goofing off more because they have a tablet. But it's not something that actually, if you put it on paper, you're reading.
There is a certain amount of eye strain involved. That's
true.
Different with paper and devices, electronic devices, and
right.
There is the composition of the color system on electronic devices is made to have certain effects on your eyes and your brain. So, it doesn't say that you can't read as well or read whatever, but I'm just saying that it does have a different effect than paper. That's all I'm saying. But that's a prolonged usage anyway, right? And
right.
What very, very few kids, I mean, I'm sure there are some, but very, very few kids are probably going to sit there face first reading textbooks for an hour on the computer, for hours and hours.
And this is the part where I start getting grumpy about audiobooks, though, is that, I'm sorry, listening to a document is not the same thing as reading the document. And I'm not saying, and again, Not saying there's anything wrong with audiobooks. You enjoy them, knock yourself out. Go. Get a subscription to Audible, buy books, whatever.
But I'm not reading for like documentary purposes, or I'm not like I wouldn't. So I'm reading fiction. I'm listening to fiction on those. I'm not trying to learn a new subject or learn certain new details or whatever. If I hear something and I am interested in the details of something I haven't heard of before, I will explore them. But I guess what I'm saying is that before there was writing, there were stories, and I think fiction is different than like reading instructionals or reading.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry. There's a reason why they don't give you have someone read to you on the test normally. There's a reason why books are different than movies, and even audiobooks, unless the guy's reading as monotone as possible, they're doing an interpretation, which, again, nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with audiobooks, watching a movie, going and seeing a play, any of those things. All of them are wonderful, great. But if you're saying that that's the same skill as reading, I would have to disagree.
Well, I'm saying that you can get as much out of it if you're listening to fiction as if you're reading fiction.
Well, again, there's an interpretation there, though, you're getting more.
It doesn't matter if it's interpreted or if the emphasis are not on the same words that you would emphasize. You're still getting a fictional story.
I didn't say you weren't. I'm saying that you're also getting an interpretation.
Right. Everything's an interpretation. If you read it by yourself, it's a different interpretation than what I will read.
Exactly. You're right. 100%. You read it because it's a different skill. You get a different interpretation. You get your own. It's not influenced by anyone else's stuff other than the authors. It is you are taking out the middleman, and you are going direct.
But you're not going to read what the author's interpretation is either. Or at least you're likely not to read what.
Well, in this day and age, then why keep reading? If it's the exact same thing, just have audio files and don't worry about it. Video files. Won't have to put anything on the page.
Well, somebody has to get that information from someone.
And that's the skill I want people to have. Is they can go out and they can get that.
Yeah, that's a different subject though.
No,
like you were just talking about reading
that it's a different skill, and therefore it's not the same thing. And
I wasn't claiming it was the same thing. I was saying that you were talking about listening to audiobooks, you wouldn't gain the same information or whatever. Just because you interpret it differently doesn't mean that you wouldn't be able to retain the same information.
And again, there's an interpretation that you get the same words. However, I mean, it all goes down to voice, and people will. You even talked about it. Oh, they make it sound like a radio play. Well, again, that's an interpretation.
I mean,
and all those are great, wonderful. I have no problem with any of them, other than the fact that it's a different skill. And the consumption of that, while it's fine, it's perfectly fine for entertainment purposes, but it's not the same skill.
Okay, that's all I'm saying. All I'm saying is storytelling purposes. It doesn't matter whether I'm reading it or listening to it or watching it. It's all a story. That's what I was saying. It's not the same thing as that you were saying. I wasn't trying to make it out to be an argument against what you were saying. It was just an addendum to what you were saying.
I'm also kind of a snob on this stuff because
like the works of William Blake. If the poem went with an image, then you don't have the full thing unless you have the image. Great Gatsby, you don't have the cover that Fitzgerald wanted. You don't have the full book, and it's not that I'm saying that. I mean, again, I have a copy of The Great Gatsby, which is a beautiful copy, has some beautiful artwork in it. Doesn't have the right art, doesn't have the right front on it. I can enjoy it, and I know the original artwork, so it's okay. I have a poster of it in my room. I have no problem. And I know it.
At least you prefaced all this with you're a snob about it.
Well, I just think the author, when we know Fitzgerald, like some authors,
that's the right way to go about it.
Well, no,
is to say that it's the way that you feel, not just necessarily the way that everybody will feel.
Well, that's fine, but I mean, here's one. Like, if you or I got a writing or a contract to write a book, chances are the publisher is going. If we go with traditional publishing, which is what Fitzgerald did, most authors, for a good portion of their careers, don't have a whole bunch of say normally over what the cover is. But Fitzgerald, when he wrote Gatsby, had the pull that he could dictate, and we know he did. He said, I want that painting. I wrote it into my book. And so for me, that's the artist's true interpretation. Anything else is not quite right. And I'm not saying it's not valuable.
It makes it different than anybody else.
What?
So because he had the pull, it makes it different than any other author that might have an opinion of what the cover is because they know they don't have control, but because he had the pull, it makes it different.
And because he wrote it into his book. Like, it wasn't just, oh, hey, I like that one. It's part of the book.
So he described the cover of the book in the book?
Yeah.
Or it's a scene from the book?
There's a description. So we know that, because we know that Fitzgerald sent editorial changes back and forth, right? And those are pretty well documented. There are places in the book that, for one thing, then he saw the painting, wrote the thing to the editor, said, hey, make sure I get that picture, because I wrote it into my book. And then you can see changes that were made that, amazingly enough, sound just like the painting. Which, if you wanted to argue he's cheating...
No, what my point is that Tolkien painted covers for his book.
Well, then I would say that the real book would be with his paintings.
So the concepts that you have of what Tolkien's stuff looks like versus what Tolkien's paintings look like would not necessarily be the same. Doesn't make you enjoy them any less or be any less of an expert on the prose. I guess, like, it just sounds very nitpicky, but that's a different time period in publishing too. Authors had a different kind of power and pull because there weren't as many outside ways of getting stories. You know what I mean? Like, you couldn't just turn on the TV in every household, or you couldn't watch cable in every household. And some of them you couldn't even go to a movie in every town. The original description of Conan, what's Conan look like? According to Robert E. Howard.
He's got, what is it? He's like a straight cut.
He's got a square cut name.
Yeah.
But that is that's what's perceived as Prince Valiant. So his hair doesn't go to his shoulders and it's straight across his brow. Nobody pictures Conan like that. People picture Conan like what Frank Frazetta painted him like. Before Frank Frazetta painted him, there were covers like with Weird Tales with Conan on it, but you probably wouldn't recognize him because he's wearing chitin and he's wearing. He doesn't have a square cut name. He's got 1920s look because the painters were doing stuff in the 1920s and 30s and why can't I think of the names? The 20 dancer girls. Flapper girls.
Oh, flappers?
Yeah, that's what they were illustrating the covers of Conan with, that kind of thing. But that's not how Robert E. Howard described them. But it's because it was in the 30s, mid-30s, and that's what sold, because you had the hairstyles between the 20s and 40s. 40s they got into a whole lot of different hairstyles, but the 20s and 30s have relatively simpler hairdos. And that's reflected on the cover of Weird Tales, the Conan story. I guess what I'm saying is, like, if people that read Conan were like, oh, that cover doesn't have anything to do with the story and that mattered, Conan would still be around. So it's just interesting to me to see the weight that you're putting on a cover. And I'm an artist, so, you know, it's...
I would point out, like, there are things that, I mean, you dismissed entire films because you didn't think people looked the way they were supposed to out of the book. And I'm like,
no, I dismissed them just because of how they look.
Okay.
Which ones did I dismiss just because of how they look?
You've talked about them before with, like, you know, it's not the person out of the book or whatever, and it's like, all right, cool.
Well, that doesn't mean that it's just because of, you know, what their haircut was, or if they're supposed to have a certain kind of suit and they don't, that's a relative thing. That's kind of important to the story, then that's one thing. But I wouldn't say, oh, the cover of that movie doesn't look like what I thought the cover of the book should look like, and therefore I'm not going to watch the movie. Like, I don't know, it just was. I'm not even saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying that it's interesting to me that you're putting so much weight on the cover of the book.
Only when the author gets to choose. If the author says this is the way my book's supposed to look, it's in the book, then you gotta have it if you want the whole story. And again, for most authors, they sell the rights, the publisher gets to choose what goes on your cover. You know, I mean, all that stuff's negotiated. The bigger you are, the bigger your name gets to be, all that kind of stuff. Who's going to be the artist for your book is normally not determined by the author. I mean, there's a lot of stuff with marketing with the traditional publishers where you don't get a say. So it's really not that, I would say it's not that important. But when you do get a say, then I would say that is important.
That doesn't make it any less interesting to me.
Okay. I view the thing as a whole, not as something that's separate. When the author gets to choose.
You know, like I said, I just found it interesting the way that you're putting on that cover. That's all. I guess I'm not stating whether it's good or bad. I'm just saying it's interesting.
Well, again, just remember, it's got to be something where the author chose to present their work in a particular way.
And like I said, that's maybe it's changing these days, but that's a different time. The authors had a lot more authority back in those days, because they had a lot more control over the people's entertainment. I guess is what I'm trying to say. You could get away with a lot more as a writer if you were a selling writer. But to that fact, Tolkien wrote technically 3 books that he published in Middle-earth. Because Lord of the Rings was originally 1 volume, but was broken down into 3 by his publisher.
Right. Puts them off.
But the 3rd one, which is what he wanted, and I guess his kid wanted, his publisher's kid wanted something else, and they argued over it, so it never got published until much later. But it was The Adventures of Tom Bombadil. But it's, I guess that's more speaking towards the pull that certain authors have. If you're an internationally best-selling author, you can probably pick or choose some covers. I know for a fact Robert R. McCammon's covers of his Matthew Corbett series, he's chosen those because it's his artist that does that. It's an artist friend of his that does those covers. But and that's where I said maybe it's a bit different these days, it's because he's not worried about whether or not a publisher will buy them from him, because McCammon was one of the top 5 horror authors in the 80s, so his books sell anyway. They would sell just on his name, but he's proven that. He actually got a TV series that's going to be based on, I want to say Mine. Stinger, maybe it's Stinger. But it's one of his 80s books. It's kind of Stephen King-esque horror, because he, King, Kuntz, and John Saul wrote pretty much in the same vein, except for John Saul mostly wrote about small town secrets. Sometimes they were ghosts, sometimes they were just some weird culty shit. But they, for the most part, were attracting the same audiences. Boy's Life is one of my favorite books. The Queen of Bedlam is one of my favorite books, and that's one of the Matthew Corbett series. But I prefer that book without the actual artist that he let do the other covers. It's weird. Some books actually rely on the art.
Yeah.
And they did for quite a bit of like the 80s and 90s. And then they started going to just almost fanciful types of scripts on the covers where there was really no art. Just funky words or swirls and stuff like that. Don't think I ever got that. You've got a lot of Stephen King's and Dean Koontz's covers back in that time period. They were pretty much black covers that had their names pretty big and maybe a small picture of a house or something like that.
Yep.
I think that a lot of covers go with trend. Like, it's the same thing as genre almost. Like, there's genre covers, genre-specific covers that you see and it automatically evokes certain things. Like, if you see a silhouette on the cover running down a city street, you're going to know it's some type of thriller. If there's an explosion, you're going to assume it's like a spy thriller. And we did that for like every book in that genre for a long, long time. So I think a lot of covers are something that will sell people who are looking for a certain genre. With
Well,
that
Dave
imagery.
Overton's talked about that. He's talked about, in his book, he's talked about some of the, like I remember the art from, Elstones of Shannara. I suppose I could look it up. And the guy that did the artwork for a lot of the what's the show? It's on.
Talking about Wheel of Time.
Yeah, that guy.
Daryl K. Sweet. That's actually who Dave convinced them to do the covers for his work.
Right.
So there is a little bit of authorial control over that. But you know what they did, and I don't know if it was Dave being jealous of not having the same sales or what, but I've seen him comment on the Wheel of Time sales and saying that Tom Doherty pulled every string he could to get those sales to go up that high. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I know that he was saying that his Rune Lord covers that he's got Daryl K Sweet's covers on. He's claiming that if they came out in the same time period as the Jordan book, they would dim the colors. They would lessen the Warren's family today. Wow.
What?
Chroma. They lessen the
Okay.
chroma. Well, no, I was trying to think of value, and for a minute I couldn't even think of value, and that's pretty much everything. Like, so chroma is mistakenly thought of as saturation, but it's not just saturation. It's the brightness or muddiness of a color, the clarity, like straight out of a tube, or whether you're mixing it lighter or graying it out, or that's what the chroma is about.
Yeah.
And what he was saying is that they would basically put a multiply over, like a multiply layer over it, and dull the colors down some, so that the Wheel of Time books or the bigger selling books would be bright.
That's
It kind of sounds like jealousy there, but it might be true. And it might be one of those little tricks that we never noticed, but I've got a bookshelf full of books. I'm not even full of books. I've got several of them. Full disclosure, I gave 7 boxes of 3,000 books to a friend of mine because I had no room for them when I moved. And I've been steadily kind of divvying up the ones that I've read among people I know that I think would like them. And I still have bookshelves packed with books. And I have not noticed any of them that I can hold side to side by the same artist that are dim. Now, to be fair, it's been a long time since I've read Wheel of Time, and when Robert Jordan died, after I had been reading them for a very long time, waiting for him to finish, he died. Well, 3 books before Brandon Sanderson finished, but he went back and wrote a prequel, so it kind of made me angry, so I was like, yeah, I'm not reading these until he's done. So I don't have any of them on hand to compare necessarily against any other ones, but I do have several books by several different fantasy artists. Well, several books that the covers are done by several different popular fantasy artists. And I have not noticed any of them duller than another one. And I can't imagine, like, I could probably check the dates of publication, but I can't imagine any of them or all of them came out in different months, because there's only 12 months in a year, you know? So,
right.
So many of them would have had to have come out in the same month. So I don't know if the theory is true, because I also didn't buy all the books that came out in a year. I don't know if Dave's theory is true or it smacks of him feeling kind of cheated because they didn't put the same push behind him as Robert Jordan. But I find it's an interesting theory on covers. I do know that one main difference between Robert Jordan, whose name is really James Oliver Rigney, we know where Robert Jordan comes from. It's the pen name comes from. I said Robert Jordan, the author Robert Jordan's real name is James Oliver Rigney.
Okay.
We all know where his pseudonym came from. Came from Hemingway.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because Robert Jordan, James Oliver Rigney, was a Vietnam vet that was a machine gunner in a helicopter. So part of his writing, part of the way he wrote and what he chose to write was redemption, I guess, for some of the stuff he had to do in Vietnam.
Yeah.
They called him the Iceman. He killed a lot of people. And I think if there's any truth to Tom Doherty pushing harder for him for sales than the next author, which, doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because you're the publisher. You want to make money off of all of the authors, right?
Right.
But if there's any truth to it, it's probably because he was a veteran and because he was dealing with all the stuff he was dealing with. And his wife, Harriet, was an editor for Tom Doherty. So he had some advantages. Have you read Moon Lord?
No.
Would you like to?
Sure.
I'll send it to you. I read all but the last, I think, 20 pages or something like that. And that's because I knew exactly what was in those last 20 pages. Didn't have to read it.
Okay.
No, it's not an insult on Dave or anything like that. It's I've heard him break down the Rune Lords because you know how, like, you've taken enough courses from him, I'm sure, to know that he talks about how Rune Lords was big in Japan because they really knew that he understood honor and all this other stuff because of the way his character, Sir Bornson or whatever, continued with his quest of honor when he could have avoided it if he was American or whatever. But that doesn't happen until that last 20 pages, and by that you already know what his quest of honor is going to be. So there was no need to read it because I knew it was going to happen. He also said that all these people that had read it had laughed and cried and felt all these emotions. And maybe I'm just a cold motherfucker, but I didn't. I didn't feel all those emotions. I didn't feel any of those emotions going through it, really. Now, that's not to say that other people might not have. We know he was LDS, and we know that they have different sensibilities and sensitivities, right? So that could be part of it. But as somebody who's not LDS, and maybe I'm colder because life has treated me different than growing up in an LDS community, right? Maybe because of that, the life seems a bit harsher to me. So the things that would make people maybe laugh or cry or get emotional or whatever didn't affect me the same way because of it. And like nothing in that book made me feel like emotional enough to tear up. Not one thing. And I've been known to be emotional over movies that people make fun of people being emotional over. Especially as I get older and as I've had near-death experiences. But it still didn't affect me in that way. So, as long as we're talking about it, I'm going to broach a subject that hopefully won't get us fighting. But I wanted to broach it with someone else as the writer that I'm actually physically talking to. Because I don't have anyone else around that I can physically talk to that's a writer. Now we're discussing like this. What, in your opinion, and this might be like a blanket question, but I'm not trying to make it that way. What, in your opinion, makes for strong characterization? Like in any type of genre, doesn't have to be mainstream, doesn't have to be fantasy, but what when you're reading makes you feel like some characters are strong characters and other characters are cardboard?
Strong characters, like the really strong characters, you should be able to see a line that you haven't read, maybe from dialogue, maybe in action, but without it being attributed to that character, you think, oh, that's so that character. So
yeah, but isn't that voice?
No, because again, it doesn't have to be dialogue. It can be actions, or the way they look.
Maybe I misheard what you said then.
What?
I said maybe I misheard what you said then.
Don't get me wrong. I think that the dialogue.
No, I just thought you said that if you read something someone says.
No, I'm saying the dialogue should still apply to dialogue. It doesn't. It's not restricted to dialogue. A strong character will have a strong voice, and not necessarily a strong voice as in they are commanding, but as in it's recognizable. You know, oh, that's what somebody says. Then Adam's back. So, I'm going to go to The Great Gatsby because I think he does a pretty darn good job. You can tell.
Go to other stories too, just because some people don't like The Great Gatsby.
I get it. I'm saying, but like it's pretty obvious, even if you don't know the famous quotes. It's normally, I think, pretty obvious as to if you've read it, who's saying what, or if they look a certain way or do certain things. It really is something where they should be recognizable. And the less information you have that is needed to make them recognizable, I would say is a sign of strong characterization. Now that's somewhat dependent on the reader, because
what sticks out to me is going to be different than you. But generally speaking, I think most readers should be able to pick out and recognize who the strong characters are. So,
yeah, I'm not noticing that though. That's why I'm asking your opinion on this stuff, is because I've been looking around, reading around. You know, I read a lot,
right?
And some of the things that are touted as strong characterization, or some of the books that are touted for having strong characters, have the same exact characters that other people are calling cardboard characters in other books. They're doing the same things. They're explaining them the same way. The exposition is the same. The dialogue treatments are the same. And some people obviously are a deeper penetrating point of view than others, but from what I've seen, that doesn't really matter as much in characterization how deep the penetration is. So I'm also asking for all those people that don't know how to phrase this question. You know what I mean? Because then I help people in the server, and
right,
that I know that are trying to write, that don't want to come to a writing group or whatever the case may be. But it's interesting for me to get a different point of view, because strong characters seems to be very subjective. Like, if you talk to one group of writers about it, it would be like, you can have the weakest character, but so long as they check a box, it's a strong characterization, right? They can do pretty much the ordinary tropish things.
Well, some of that would be determined by, I mean, if it's a modern work and they're just doing the tropes, and somebody says it's great characterization, I'd have to look at it to see what the heck they're talking about. But again, I would also argue.
That's why I wanted you to use more than the Great Gatsby as an example, because there's a lot of different. The more popular fictions right now are, well, aside from manga,
right?
They're fantasy pretty much. Like, even science fiction is not as popular as fantasy is now, and horror is not as popular as fantasy is now. Whereas in the early '80s, fucking fantasy horror was way popular.
Well, I mean, some of the stuff. Well, think of it this way. When I'm a fan of China Mayville, and you weren't all that impressed. Okay.
Yeah, I just had a hard time relating to crustacean.
His fantasy races were some of the more interesting, put it that way. I am not a fan of his fantasy races, to be honest. I mean, I'm really not, which is kind of funny because I still love the books. But what he does well, in my opinion, resonates with me, and I appreciate it. There are characters I can think of that I thought were pretty memorable. I wouldn't necessarily, but they might be memorable, but still be kind of shallow. And some people are going to call that good characterization because they're memorable. And for me, they have to be identifiable without a gimmick, I think. Like, I'm probably going to get this wrong.
I suppose I could look it up. But in Dune, I think it's Peter DeVries. Is that his name? Peter.
Yeah, fighter. Yeah.
Whatever his name is.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the Mentat that's
the Harkonnen Mentat.
Yeah, the Baron.
Yeah, and he likes to say "Yuma" or something like that, which I just found annoying as hell. And I mean, yeah, it makes it memorable, and yeah, I can recognize his dialogue versus anyone else's, but that's a gimmick, and there better be more to it than just an annoying phrase that he keeps saying. And but again, that's gonna.
You're talking about it in the book or in the movie?
In the book.
Okay. Well, like I said, I'm speaking for other people.
Right. I'm just saying when it's a, I said you should be able to recognize who it is with the less information you need, without it being a gimmick. Because I don't think it's really good characterization just because your character, says the F word before every other vowel. That doesn't make it good characterization. That makes it annoying.
Well, and that actually doesn't distinguish that character from a dozen other ones that do.
Right. And I don't know. I mean, it's... Look at Iron Man in the MCU versus Thor. Thor, I'm sorry. I mean, I like the concept and whatnot, but overall, he's a kind of flat character because it's the same lesson that he has to learn every single time. And it's not consistent. Sometimes he has no idea, like he's smashing mugs in the first film. Because he doesn't know any better, and it's just, it seems very fake. It's fine, whatever, but you compare that to Iron Man, and throughout all of the movies, Iron Man is continually learning and growing, and so you know who he is, like you know what to expect from him, but he keeps learning and developing, so he takes what you already knew and can recognize, and it's a logical extension. And so his actions and his plot points make more sense and are more satisfying because it's a character that we really truly love. It's kind of why I don't think Doctor Doom is going to work. Because Doctor Doom is not the same character as Tony Stark. I don't care if Tony Stark became Doctor Doom in a what if, whatever. It's not the same character. Like, it's just not the same thing. So
if you look at the Doctor Doom in that character, or in that story, and I'm not going to hijack that because I don't want to get too far off subject, but if you look at that particular Doctor Doom,
yeah,
he's got Iron Man's color.
Right.
There's no confusing him for the green Doctor Doom. Right. And what color was he wearing when he announced that he was going to play Doctor Doom?
Green.
Green. And and in that universe, it's not Tony Stark, it's Anthony Stark. But in that universe, Doom's Iron Man is green. He's green and silver. And Doctor Doom is red and gold. So there are visual clues to that too. Somebody else was arguing it on a different Larry Correa's post. Somebody posted it on his page, and there was some dude was all like, if you read comic books, you know why this has worked. I'm like, if you read comic books, you know that this has nothing to do with Earth 616, which is what the entire MCU is based on. So,
right.
But
what's kind of funny about that Doctor Doom thing, because I got to thinking about it,
And I think they missed out on an easy solution that would have been beautiful. They should have hired James Bader to do it. Because they could have planted kind of like in a flashback, you know, Ultron has James Bader's voice. He doesn't have Tony Stark's voice, doesn't have Jarvis's voice. It has a very unique voice. And you could link it back to that and say, oh yeah, Dr. Doom inserted some malware or something like that. And that's why Dr. Doom sounds like James Bader. And Ultron sounds like James Bader. Like it would work. It would work out perfectly. I'm just saying. And I think James Spader could.
I think what a lot of people are missing about Dr. Doom is that Dr. Doom is older than Tony Stark.
Well, James Spader is
aside
older
from that
than
one story, like he should have been all the fucking Fantastic Fours that have failed. None of them were pitting them against Dr. Doom. They should have. That's what they really should have done.
When we were talking about it, and then later on when I was thinking about, I like Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. It's one of the best castings I've ever seen. Guy owned it. It was beautiful. I can't, really imagine anyone else doing that. But James Spader as Dr. Doom and the voice of Ultron, it's not comic book accurate, but it could be MCU accurate. Like, you don't have to. I don't know. I mean, he would have the same gravitas. He would have a better gravitas than Robert Downey Jr. will, I think. So he would. And then, yeah, that connection to Ultron, which would also allow you to have Ultron coming back, maybe created out of Doom bots. I think it would work. Yes, I agree, Adam. James Spader plays a great intelligent narcissist. I mean, if you've ever watched The Blacklist, it just seems.
I watched James Spader since Tough Turf.
Since what?
Tough Turf.
Okay. Is that the lawyer one?
Nope.
Oh.
In that, he plays a kid that moves to LA that ends up fighting a gang with two pellet guns.
Well, anyway, I think it would be a good. Not that would be a good thing. Yeah, when you can sit there, the movies are actually kind of an interesting litmus test, I guess. If you see the casting for a film that's based off a book, and you can go, nah, that ain't right. Chances are, it's because the characterization was strong enough to leave an impression that is at odds with their interpretation. So when I see,
so basically, you're saying good characterization deserves its own interpretation.
I'm saying that it is. Well, no, there's the reader aspect of it.
Well, yeah, that's the interpreter.
Right, and I think that I wouldn't say it's 100. Well, to some extent, it is 100% subjective. However, I think you can come to consensus, normally speaking, and sometimes you're not going to agree with the consensus, and sometimes you are. There are characters in literature, film, whatever, that some people just absolutely love and other people absolutely despise, or that absolutely bully them. Because I would argue, if you absolutely despise that character, that's a great character. But Yeah, so I would say, yeah, it's subjective. Are there things you could do to make better characters? Yeah, I think there are, and I think those things could be relatively objective. As in, these things tend to work. You know, if your hero is perfect and wonderful and is Mary Sue, that's probably going to be bad characterization unless you have a fantastic personality. Like, it has to get beyond all of everything else. So that's why normally we give our characters flaws and tragic backstories and all that kind of stuff so that they become more interesting. Even James Bond has a tragic backstory. Superman has a tragic backstory. Spider-Man has a tragic backstory. Does Wonder Woman have a tragic backstory?
No, she's unless they redid it in the movies, because I didn't watch the movies.
No tragic backstory there. You know, Themyscira is just perfect because it's all women.
What?
In the movie, Themyscira, you know, where all the Amazons live, and you know, it's like this wonderful paradise, and they just look. She constantly just belittles. What's his name?
The Trevor?
Yeah, whatever his name is.
Well, I'm trying to remember. The last time I watched Wonder Woman was fucking 1978 or something.
Well, the last film, it was set in the 80s.
Yeah, I didn't watch that.
Yeah, you shouldn't. It's not very good.
No, I've heard basically she's a rapist, so, you know. Whatever.
Kinda, yeah. It's a little creepy. Yeah, there are all kinds of things going on there. Just they're very questionable at the very least. But now that I'm thinking about it, okay, Black Widow has a tragic history.
Kinda.
Maybe I'm wrong. I've never thought about it. And so I am not making this claim.
What?
I'm about to say something that could be controversial. So I'm not making the claim. I'm simply saying it's something that I might want to look into. And if you know more, you can tell me. But it seems like tragic backstories in comic books tend to be for male characters more than female characters. Now, I'm not sure that's true. Okay, so I don't want you to be like, you said this.
Well,
like,
no,
I'm saying I should look into it.
I don't know. Like I know a lot of comic book characters, but I don't know them all.
Right.
What I do know is that most of like the X-Men have tragic backstories because when they discover their mutants, usually they have some kind of tragic backstory because they discovered it. I'm trying to think. I don't know. Like I can't say for Firestar or I know Black Widow. I mean, if you watch the movie, I don't think I've ever seen her actual backstory in comic. Like, I want to say that would have started like in Nick Fury or something like that. But again, don't quote me on that because I'm not exactly sure. But in the movie, it really wasn't. She's a super soldier, right? She's just a Russian super soldier.
Right. Super spy or something, yeah.
And her father was supposed to be a hero, but like a Russian hero, and that doesn't mean a Russian hero is different than a regular hero. It's just Russians do tend to think differently than we do.
I'm really gonna have to think about some of that though.
Like, okay, so not that this is a good movie.
That's always an interesting way to begin the conversation.
Hey, it's $1 billion film. But the Marvel...
That's just like, you aren't even listening to me, aren't you? That's a...
Well, Captain
another
Marvel...
interesting way to start a conversation.
Captain Marvel, if you ever saw it, they make a big deal of...
So you're talking about the Carol Danvers Captain Marvel, correct?
Right, and she, the film... And,
never saw it.
Well, India's shouldn't, it's terrible. But her big thing was... they called her a girl. That was her big tragic backstory. And Adam, when you say Kara Zor-El, Supergirl, is the same tragic planet-ending backstory as Superman, I would disagree. It's not the same as Kal-El, because didn't she have she was off with some other group? Like, he's off by himself. He's alone. He's off growing up on Earth. Didn't she have, like, she was like a cousin, and wasn't she, like, with another group? Well, and Adam, I'm not saying that that you're wrong about Elektra in any way, shape, or form. And I'm not saying that there aren't female characters with tragic backstories. I just think it might be less often.
Well, and Elektra also originally didn't. So whatever is created after Frank Miller created her,
Yeah.
that would be a little bit different than what the original thing was. And we know how that goes because they tend to create a backstory and then go, whoop, that's not the right one. That was just a dream.
Yeah.
Like, how many different backstories does Wolverine have?
Yeah, too many. That was another thing I saw recently. I forget the channel, and I feel bad. I should write this down if I'm going to mention it. I will look it up later. But they were kind of reviewing these solo films, or not films, these solo comics that are coming out, because they pointed out first that like there were lots of them, like 12 different things. And they are all female-led comics except for one, and that was Wolverine.
Yeah, and that's going to be female-led too, because it's X-32 or whatever she is.
23.
Yeah.
But I think the Wolverine is actually him.
That's why I suck at math.
But they were saying that Marvel is desperate to find their female Wolverine. Not necessarily X-23, because I don't think anyone really thinks that she's Wolverine and Wolverine's not. Yeah, Adam, Rogue also discovers her powers when she, nearly kills her first kiss. I mean, there are characters.
That goes back to the X-Men tragic discoveries of their powers.
And Jessica Jones, they had to kind of give her a tragic event. The character was already made. They made her better, but more interesting, really. But yeah, I'm just anyway. So they were going through and they were saying that Marvel's trying to come up with a female Wolverine, and they're like, and this the channel that I was watching basically said that they don't have a super popular female character, and they're trying to find one. And I gotta say, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If you're trying, I'm not saying take away anything that's already popular. I'm saying, okay, you want a unique...
But that's why they're trying to do it.
Well, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not
because
gonna...
Hugh Jackman's retiring, and nobody really will accept a replacement for him. So if they find a girl Wolverine, then that's their next movie icon.
No, maybe. I mean, I don't know.
But about comic books, dude. Those they're not about comic books anymore. They're about IPs. So if they can get a strong IP,
right? And they want a strong female IP,
right?
And
they want an equivalent of Wolverine IP.
Well,
because Wolverine is hands down the best-selling Marvel, except for
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Oh, okay, I can see that.
You can only redo the same intro story so many times.
That is true. But like one of the comics, which I thought I would think I would actually thought one of them was pretty decent. It was a Psylocke title, and Psylocke used to be super lame. 90s, I think they made her a lot more interesting.
Yeah, I kind of had a crush on sci-fi or on Psylocke. Most of my comic collection days.
I thought, no, if they wanted to make, I think Psylocke has the potential for a serious standalone character. Especially with her doing stuff with the hand. Like, that was an interesting storyline that the X-Men never really, in my opinion, while I was reading comic books, I don't feel like they really explored that as well as they could have. And I would be interested in reading that. She was a neat character. She could do some neat stuff. Like when she was in her pink outfit, or lilac, or whatever it was, like that light, wasn't that great?
I don't know.
Adam said he would accept Wes, is it Chatham from The Expanse? I've never watched The Expanse. Anyway, he would accept this person, Wes Chatham, as Wolverine, but he's only 10 years younger than Hugh at this point, so it may be too late. I gotta tell you, and this may be...
There's Hugh Jackman's been the only one to play Wolverine, and there's a lot of chatter right now. I'm not saying that nobody else could play it, in my opinion. What I'm saying is that there's a lot of people that are complaining about anyone replacing Hugh Jackman, because Hugh Jackman's the only Wolverine. There's actually memes out there showing there's like 13 Batman and there's like 10 Spider-Man, but there's only one Wolverine, so.
Right, which is kind of
It'll be a
ridiculous.
difficult sell. It would be a really difficult sell. Especially given his comic history where he's just as old as he is today in World War II when he first meets Captain America and Black Widow, which makes me wonder why Black Widow isn't really old chick. But
I actually think Cold War Wolverine might be kind of really neat. Quite frankly, that's one of those things with Wolverine because he's such a long, a long-lived character. You can have Civil War Wolverine. You can have, just all kinds of things, and it works because it works. But
I don't know. I think in Origins, wasn't he born after the Civil War in Canada?
I don't. Is that what it was? That was like Revolutionary War.
I want to say, 1890s or something like that in Origins. It might be 1860, but it's definitely not 1700.
Well, it says here he was
not in
born,
Origins, anyway.
It says he was born in 1832. So I was 50 years old.
In
Well, Price is Right rules, I win. Yeah, feudal Japan Wolverine. Well, they've kind of done that, sort of. But technically, Wolverine could have been a samurai. Yeah, Adam, I've been told to watch The Expanse. Like, I have friends that are like, you should watch The Expanse.
Yeah, I couldn't make it through the whole thing. I watched some of it. It's like, is it Thomas Jane or is it Aaron Eckhart this one? Sometimes I confuse the two. I think it's Tom Jane.
They made that orange. Adam said they made that orange much later. I was disappointed because contrary to a lot of stuff that had come before. Yeah, Marvel's kind of bad about that. So is DC. So.
Yeah, Tom Jane. Originally it was Tom Jane. Now it's Thomas Jane ever since he played the Punisher.
I just think it's kind of funny that in the 90s they took Psylocke, who I thought was the lamest X-Men at the time, and then turned her into the one that I was like, this is actually pretty, like, it was the most change, and I don't know, I really liked it, and I think she could be really cool. She could be, in the right writer's hand, an Elektra-like character. I mean, literally, she's trained by the hand. I mean, it works. But did you see? You haven't seen Deadpool, right? The new one.
Have I seen part 3? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Or are you asking him?
I'm asking you.
No, I haven't. I'm going to movies. I ain't got no money for movies.
Do you
Nobody's coming on
know?
my artwork.
Do you know the cameos that are in that? Like, if I tell you some of the
I
cameos,
do know the cameos that are in there.
okay.
And I listened to Dick and Vito break it down, and I got to tell you, I don't really want to see.
Well, here's the
From
thing.
what I
I think,
understand, it's the plot's full of plot holes. There's
Oh, yeah.
no real plot.
oh yeah, hardcore. It's a
And there's a lot of bad jokes. But there's a lot of cameos, too.
okay. I'm gonna read this from Adam, but I'm gonna come back to the cameos. Originally, it was alluded that Sabretooth was Wolverine's father, and Wolverine Origins written by Joe Quesada. He changed all that, including Logan's birth year and origin story. Could be. But
Yeah. But I've got origins. No. They're supposed to be brothers that names were switched. It's Sabretooth's the bastard son of Wolverine's father. That's what's in the comic, because I have the comic.
well, anyway, so in Deadpool, they're doing fan service and whatever, but they had like Henry Cavill's in it, right? As Wolverine.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, sorry, spoiler.
No, I was talking about the whole origin thing.
Oh, well, he doesn't look that good as Wolverine, and you know they have Gambit in the movie.
Yeah, it's Channing Tatum instead of Taylor Kitsch.
Right.
Taylor Kitsch looked better for the role. They just didn't write it very well.
Well, yeah, that was the thing. It was like, but here's the thing: while it's a comic accurate suit, it doesn't look good on screen. And part of me kind of wonders if that some of that wasn't intentional. Like, you know, they make Henry Cavill look not so great because he doesn't grow. They make Channing Tatum. They make that Gambit look kind of goofy because it's there for a joke, and like his accent
pretty much
is
all
super
there for a
thick.
joke.
What?
I said I thought they were pretty much all there for a joke.
Well, to some extent, yeah, which is why they can again make them look kind of ugly and stupid. And it's not a dig at Deadpool 3. It's just, but I kind of wonder if they did that A, for the humor, and B, so it doesn't detract from the 2 stars that are actually there. But like, if you were to watch, I think Deadpool 3, and you see Channing Tatum doing Gambit, you might think that's not the greatest Gambit. But like, I kept looking, like I was watching him, like, 'cause I know he's been wanting to play that role, and I just thought, you know, he sounds Cajun, sometimes a little too much, which is kind of a joke. And his costume just looks fake beyond belief, but it's comic accurate. And I keep thinking, yeah, if you made him look less stupid, but I also kind of think Channing Tatum is too big for Gambit. But
I think Taylor Kitsch actually looks like Gambit. If you see him in John Carter, he really kind of does.
yeah, I agree.
But
That movie was terrible.
I don't think they intended, like when he was Gambit, that was the first time that Ryan Reynolds was Deadpool, and they made him stupid as fuck and not comic book accurate too.
Yep.
Except for they were trying to be serious with him.
Well, yeah.
That's kind of the problem.
I think they were trying to be ironic too, because the Merc with the mouth had no mouth.
Adam said the half-brother exposition wasn't written until Origins in 2001. Oh, I should probably back up. I'm going to read the whole thing. So Adam said originally it was alluded that Sabretooth was Wolverine's father, and the Wolverine Origins written by Joe Quesada, I think, changed all that, including Logan's birth year and origin story. That was changed in 2001. Prior to that timeline, by Chris Claremont in Uncanny X-Men 212 in 1986, all the way up to Wolverine Volume 2, Volume 42 through 43 in 1991, written by Larry Hama, who alludes that Sabretooth is Logan's father. The half-brother exposition wasn't written until Origins in 2001.
Right, Origins.
Which...
Anyway, like...
I'm just reading.
I've actually... There were other ones, too. The whole Mutinex...
What's funny is, so Wolverine's history has always been something of a mystery. And
it was better when it was, really.
And I kind of agree with that. I generally agree with that. Not even kind of. I would say I generally do. Because I've seen what they've done. But do you really think that's his character? Like, he's always shown as being somewhat straightforward and no nonsense. But then when it comes to his past, they're like, I don't know. Oh, part of it's memory lost, and that's not his fault. But
that was the explanation, is that he didn't have a memory. So it wasn't that he wasn't being straightforward. He just didn't have the information. At least that's the way they made it out when I started reading it.
Yeah, because Professor X was helping him, and they were trying. Yeah, I remember that, which was kind of interesting.
That's how he got into the X-Men, because he didn't want to be in the X-Men originally. Right.
Part of that's one of those. So his real story is he's forced into becoming the X-Men because that way the X-Men will sell.
Right, and that's what I was saying with the whole. They start off one way, but it's really, it was a dream, or this wasn't the real version, or they do that all the time in comic books. And it's a trope in science fiction too, right?
Well, and
so why wouldn't it be in comic book fiction, which is basically still science fiction or fantasy?
I would I guess suggest that some of the stuff with Wolverine, because of the medium being comic books, which tend to, especially at that time, thrive on kind of an interconnectedness. It's kind of, they know Wolverine sells, so they want to use them. And he gets put into stories and convoluted things because of the connections to other people. So Adam was saying, it was also alluded that Logan was somewhere between 300 to 500 years old, and there was exposition that he fought in feudal Japan prior to his birth in the 19th century, which Origins kind of canceled all that. And one of Wolverine's allures was mystery and not knowing. I agree. So if you had a book of just him going out, and he can have all kinds of different adventures, but he's actively trying to find out who he is, and never really does, or something like that. I mean, that's a common trope. or eat little bits at a time. That would be fine, but they put Wolverine into all kinds of other things, and then they have to try to figure out how it's all connected. And
yeah, it doesn't change the fact though that they change the story.
Yeah.
Whenever they see with Wolverine, they're like, oh, this is the biggest selling character, so if we commit to something and the fans aren't happy, then we got to change it. It's kind of like, the song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah.
Where there is a real ending, but because the fans didn't like it, well, that's not the real ending. And then they just changed the subject.
Yeah, Adam said they retconned all that. Yeah. Well, that was another thing that I thought was interesting that I saw recently. And I am not subscribing to this belief. I'm simply putting it out there. But an argument was made, I think, by Nerdrotic, that you cannot pass the torch. And I don't know. I understand, I think, where he's coming from with that. That Wolverine can't have a daughter that's going to be accepted like Wolverine was. Like, he can have a daughter, she can be a character, or a son, whatever, but they will never be the Wolverine that was the Wolverine. Superman can have a cousin, but she can never really be Superman. Like, it's just, it won't be accepted by enough fans. And I think if you look at the history of mainstream comics, I think the track record of trying to pass the torch has never really worked.
So I agree with that, but the caveat is this. The writers that try to pass the torch try to pass it for the wrong reason. They always have. When Batman passed the torch to Azrael, it wasn't to replace Batman. It was just so that he could recover to be Batman again. When the Punisher passed the torch, it wasn't a permanent thing. So the real problem is that none of these writers who are writing things that pass the torch have a good reason for the torch to be passed. So we understand the Punisher's motivations. We need something just as good that's not the Punisher for the motivations for the next person. I think it's a great idea. It's the same thing as James Bond passing the torch. Instead of, they can be 007, but they're not going to be James Bond. But there are other agents. So it's the same way. What if there was a Punisher Corps? Like if Punisher took in these other people who were disabused or, had been wronged by certain societies and made his own little elite force, right?
Right.
Then when he died, somebody's going to have to replace him. Punisher's a Vietnam vet. He's dead by now. Chances are he's either dead or he's very, very old. So he's not really going to do anything.
Right.
The thing with Wolverine, though, is that they have said it's this way and then snatched it back so many times that they are untrustworthy narrators. Yeah. So you can't pass the torch to somebody else because they're going to snatch it back. Nobody's going to get invested in it. Nobody's going to believe it because it's just not believable.
Well, and I think you
and
have
if
to
he's
have a
300 years old,
right,
allegedly or whatever, then
well,
why is it all of a sudden now
right.
that we have to pass the torch? So
Adam loves the idea of the Punisher Corps.
yeah, well, it actually has been proposed in a comic or two, really. But like I said, the whole issue is everyone that has the chops to do that. They really want to destroy the original character. They don't want to pass it on. Like Batman, he's been around since the 40s. He should pass it on.
Mm-hmm.
Robin should generally be the next one up.
Yes.
Nightwing, he's been around the longest. He knows Batman's ways. He knows all of that stuff. He's pretty much beneath the cop. So Batman, who's a cop during the day, you know what I mean?
Right. Well, and here's my thing. I get passing the torch has not been very successful in the past. Completely, I recognize that. But it hasn't never been successful. Well, maybe in comic books it has, but not in genre. Well, I'm just thinking.
Well, maybe in comic books it has. Well,
I don't.
technically we're talking about comic books, but
I don't know if Doctor Who is in comic books or not because I'm not a big enough fan. But I will say they
Doctor
built
Who?
in the passing of the torch.
Are you
And-
saying Doctor Who?
Yeah.
Yeah. And even that's flawed because there was only supposed to be a finite number, and now they're proposing that it's not a finite number.
Well, that's dumb on them. But I always thought it was like, you guys, like part of this was just because they needed, because they had to get a different actor, and so they were trying to, so they wrote it into continuity. And I've always thought it's just genius. Like it's built in that you will pass the torch. So if you have an actor,
It was the same thing with Warehouse 13, by the way.
oh, I never watched Warehouse 13.
You haven't watched Warehouse 13?
No.
I'm surprised. That's something that I thought you would have been all over. So it's basically the old Friday the 13th series, how they're hunting down artifacts that are evil or whatever. In Warehouse 13, it's a government organization that's hunting down artifacts with superpowers or powers related to, or psychic powers, or psychic energies, or possessed, or there's a whole bunch of them. There's not a particular one limit thing. But at the beginning of it, there are two agents that are recruited to the warehouse. So there's the warehouse manager, and then there are two agents that are sent out to collect these things and kind of neutralize them and bring them back to the warehouse. But this warehouse is like at the end of the original Raiders of the Lost Ark, except for it's not all boxed up, they're all shelves with labels, and so the potential for stories is endless, but also you're following two agents that come in new. They're new to each other and new to the warehouse and new to the rules. So you could redo that as many times as you want to with different types of agents. I'm really surprised you haven't watched that. That's kind of dumbfounding. I would have thought that would have been something that it was a Sci-Fi Channel show.
And that might have been why.
Did you watch Haven?
No.
That's based on a Stephen King story.
Okay, so Warehouse 13 came out in 2009. And I don't know if I could afford cable at the time. To be honest with you. Thaddeus was born in 2008, so I mean we were dirt poor. And we did not get cable for quite some time. We may have had it, I don't know, but it just depends on if I could afford it, to be honest with you. There is.
So it's not, I wasn't making a judgment, I was just surprised, that's all.
Well, that's not fine. I'm just letting you know. That's, I think, why. There's a period
So you
of
got
time.
you got a whole bunch of episodes or a few seasons that you can watch that you haven't seen.
Yeah, I mean, literally, I could, and
it's
I
kind of
might.
up your alley too. So you know, I mean, there's some. It starts to get ridiculous at one point, but don't they all?
Yeah. And I mean, some of that, because again, I'd have to kind of look, see when and whatnot, but yeah, I mean, there was just a time period where I was just either I had no TV of my own, therefore I had no control over what was being watched, or we were just too dirt poor, so I had control, but I had nothing to watch. That was around the time. Like, have you ever seen Are You Being Served?
I know the show, but I haven't watched it.
I have watched.
I don't watch a lot of TV, so it's really interesting that.
Well,
I thought you would not watch by far more than I do.
I don't watch a lot of TV, but I remember I've seen all of the original episodes of Are You Being Served because the public library had them on DVD, and they were free to check out. And my wife found them entertaining. I found them entertaining. Like, so we watched it. We binged it because it was something we could afford. So that's in that time period of just not having access to a lot of that stuff. And yeah, I may not have. I just might not have had cable when it came on, and just may never have picked it up.
I get it. We had quite a bit of help, so.
Yeah.
In our early kid days, we had quite a bit of help.
Well,
But
I mean, I had help, but
that's actually what we did most of the time is like I worked a lot and then come home from work and stuff. Basically, what we did was kick back and watch stuff like Warehouse 13.
well,
My kids liked Haven before they canceled that.
The summer of 2008.
Did you watch Firefly when it was the show?
No, but that was because it was kind of hard to watch at the time. Like, I am 100%. When it comes to Firefly, like, I've seen the show now, but when it first came on, it was hard to find, and then they canceled it. That whole
Yeah, they
thing
didn't
about
play it in order either.
right. They definitely killed that show. But in 2000, when Thaddeus was first born, and this sounds terrible, but the moment he woke up in the morning, he would start crying. Partially because, we were poisoning him. Didn't know it. And that was the worst year. That summer was terrible. We were too poor to get cable or anything like that. And then it's a constantly screaming child. And his brother was only 18 months older, so you're taking care of two very young kids, and yeah, it was a very stressful year. And there was 2009. I do know we were starting to come out of it because I started working at Marion. But yeah, we were poor for. I mean, we're not rich now, but I mean, I've been homeless, so I'm okay. And when I say homeless, to some extent, we were couch surfing. We had no place of our own, but it wasn't like we were on the streets. I don't want to make it sound like I was on the street.
We've been homeless enough. Well, not with Amanda, but like me and a few of my buddies, where we came up from Michigan to Maine,
Yeah.
4 of us on 80 bucks.
Wow.
That's what we had between us. So, one of our dads lived up here,
Yeah.
and we stayed in a camper, like a little back of a pickup truck camper.
Wow.
4 of us when we first came up here. And this is Maine, and like Michigan gets cold and it gets the lake effect snow and all that, but it gets really icy, and it's man, the wind can just tear right through you here in a way that didn't really get back there.
So really, sleeping in a truck camper with 4 other people might have helped you guys survive. 'Cause you
Yeah. If I had to say what made us survive, it would not be sleeping in a camper with 4 other guys.
Yeah, I would not.
Of those 4 other guys, it wasn't that long before one went back to Michigan, and actually 2 went back to Michigan. And one of them was the one with the car. So, yeah. I wouldn't say that was what kept us alive. I would say the generosity and tenacity. Like, the 2 of us that stayed, we worked at a place that pretty much everyone around here works, because there's nothing much around here. Well, around there. We don't live around that place anymore, but it was basically building lobster traps, and so we were toting armfuls of bricks to be cut, fit into the traps, and bending stuff, and pretty much getting injured and brick dust all over us. Take a shower at the end of the day, and literally have to scrape the sediment out of the bottom of the tub to go to what was considered town. It was 15, 20 miles away, something like that. Through mountains, well, mountainous region compared to what we've been in. So yeah, I definitely know what homeless feels like. The other guy that stayed with me, he's lived under a bridge or 2 before, so
You
he
never
knows
got
what
that.
homeless feels like on a level beyond what I did.
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong, I'm thankful that I didn't that I wasn't that homeless, you know.
Well, I've always been thankful that the boys don't remember it. And,
Yeah.
you know,
My kids have no idea. That's one of the reasons I actually stayed in Maine, was because where I was in Michigan, and get so close to something and all that. There was a lot of fucking gangbang violence and a lot of fucking crazy shit going on. Even in small towns. But he didn't like we heard on the news that there was gang violence, and then we waited to see what it was going to tell us on the news, and when we found out it was a girl got gangbanged. Like that's not gangbang.
No,
that's a girl that doesn't want to admit to her dad.
Yeah.
What she got herself into.
That's true.
Like it's not the same as worried about walking behind the movie theater because if you got the wrong color shoelaces, you get stabbed 4 or 5 times. It's not the same as people driving by and rolling down their windows and taking pot shots at you. Yeah, it's not the same at all. So, but that is the number one reason that I was like, this is the place to raise kids, because I mean, there's violence everywhere, but here the violence is more like this place. I mean, there have been crazy incidents, but they're isolated incidents. Like, there was a crazy incident where somebody pulled up to a stop sign and somebody else fucking reached in, pulled them out, pulled their head out, and sawed it off at a stop sign. Like, saw. So, it's not like there isn't any crazy shit, but it was like one person, not there was a hacksaw killer running around or something. Although there's been some, like lately with the economy, there have been people that have been killing their kids because they can't afford to live and they don't want their kids to suffer, and that's pretty scary shit.
Yeah.
And that's just here, it's like all over. I'm hearing it all over. I guess it's a little bit warm over here because I'm going through the bottled water. Of course, it's not good bottled water. That's the weird. Yeah, they did release it out of the water. I actually was introduced to Firefly backwards. I saw Serenity and then went back and watched Firefly because I didn't realize that there was a Firefly. And that's why I asked you if you'd seen it, because I hadn't seen it. I didn't know about it. But I knew that they released it out of order afterwards. I'm glad I waited because I could binge watch it. It was before there was basically a channel to binge watch. But I bought the DVD set and watched it. So I ain't very much longer before we're going to be shutting down for the night. Now, I didn't intend to go in and tone it all out. I just intended to finish the little stuff up and then go back and make sure the consistency was right on the earlier pages. Just making sure the guy that's got the vest that's got rows of pads has rows of pads and stuff like that. Make sure this guy has the same outfit on and everything. So on. So, because there's only about 10 minutes left, I think I'm just gonna mess around in this corner a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Well, like I don't have what you have tomorrow, but
Oh. I don't even know what I have tomorrow. Let's face
Well-
it, I really don't.
I'm gonna say that you're gonna have a lot more than I have.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't even have to go to school, let alone. Well, of course,
Right.
you know, you never know. I could be completely wrong. Like spending the day here with you, I could make for some weird days too sometimes.
well, I mean, the first day of class is, especially when I can't print a syllabus. I can't.
That's
there's
why
some,
I
like,
asked
there-
you if you thought they were setting you up for failure, because that sounds like setting you up for failure.
Well, I mean, it could be, but in the grand scheme of things, it's been very, very public. Hey, you didn't do this. And if they want to sit there, if they want to go on record and say that I was supposed to come in over the summer on my time so they can do maintenance on their device, like, I'm sorry, that's not, like, you can pay me for my time. If you want me to come and drop off your device because you can't update it remotely, okay, fine, whatever. But pay me. I wasn't on the clock any of those days. So this idea that I have to come in on my time when you're not paying me to, so I can do a job that you want me to do, okay. Your hardware, your responsibility, man, not mine. The fact that they have to take they want them every single summer, and it's just absolutely stupid.
So Thursday, I don't know if I'm going to be streaming.
Why not? Oh, you don't have to tell me if you can't tell me. Yeah, that's fine.
Well, I can tell you later. I have an appointment. I have an appointment. It was supposed to be last Thursday, but there was a cancellation and rescheduling. And I'm not really sure if it's solid for this Thursday either. That's why I said I don't know. Like, I might not be streaming. I will plan on not. Well, no, I will plan on it and let you know if not. But I've got a feeling that it's not going to be a stream.
I'm making you full screen because I think that's a good way to have it at the end. That's it now. Nice and big, and my ugly mug doesn't have to. Thanks, Adam.
I think it'll be a fun one.
That is what I failed to say that I should have said, but yeah. But I did say I was rooting for you. I'm on your side.
Well, I'm really hoping that the building tech person, she's been really cool to me. I'm hoping she'll come through, and I will owe her big. But I kind of had to tell her a little bit what's going on. And I was like, I know this is cryptic as hell, but you can find out from other people, I guess. Oh yeah, speaking of the last 4 minutes of our time, but passing the torch. Apparently, they did this thing. Apocalypse decided to find a replacement for himself, and chose several Marvel characters to kind of compete to be the new Apocalypse, and they chose Cypher as the next Apocalypse. They're calling him Revelation. But, I mean, they took the guy whose mute power is understanding languages and reading stuff. They're going to turn him into someone supposedly as powerful as Apocalypse. Which, on one hand, I'm kind of, oh yeah, reading is a superpower, but at the same time, I just really that's
the best you can do.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I think there are characters, villains, or superheroes who in the end are just regular people with high intellect and six-pack abs, but it's so there's something interesting there.
You don't have to have six-pack abs if they have a super suit.
That's true. I'm saying though, if like Dr. Doom, he learned all of this stuff. He's a cool guy. And if you want a character who's just learned a whole bunch of stuff, well, you have that character, Dr. Doom. If you're going for Apocalypse, you want a character who's just, I mean, yeah, he should be intelligent, but he's also like powerful for no good reason. I don't know. Like I just feel like you're going for a different type of character, and it's like you want to read about the Hulk, so you pick up, I don't know, the Flash, because yeah, like it's, they're just different characters. I don't know. I just can't buy it. Anyway.
So is that our pick for the night?
That's pretty much it, yeah. Like I knocked the camera around a little bit. How much it shows. But I guess we could turn the banner off in there. Yeah. You still have the live and whatever in the window. But
Right.
maybe scoot it over this way a little.
It's looking good though.
Like just gotta finish these guys. This guy.
Yeah.
These guys can be more subtle because they're back in the distance, but I guess I'm getting some tonality out of it that I didn't intend to without using the markers, but I I have used the Copics over pencil when doing this kind of thing, and it does look pretty good if you can nail it. So trying to smooth all the pencil out if I'm gonna leave it. All right. So yeah, that's it for the night.
Yeah. Adam, thank you for showing up. Turtles, thank you for showing up.
As usual,
Commenting.
if I'm going to if we're doing stream Thursday, I'll make all the usual announcements in every Discord room and Facebook room that I normally do. If you don't see a post from me, then it's probably not going to happen.
All right.
But anyway, good night. God bless. Much love.
Ciao, guys.